And I had this thing about, if I'm in the military now, which I was, and there's a war going on, which there was, I want to go to the war. I want to see what's going on. I didn't believe anything I read about Vietnam, and I sure didn't believe anything I saw on television about Vietnam. I mean, how could this be so right and so wrong to so many people? So I just wrote Vietnam across my dream sheet with big bold letters, and I signed it. And I very first name they call. Valley men are going to go to the 1st Infantry Division. Mansour, William J., RA, 127, 45, 269er. And I go, my God, that's me. How can I go to the infantry division? Well, the Army's got a funny way of doing things. So, 6 of us that fell out, had to turn in our bed linens, and then we'd go off on the road. They'd either come in by airplane or chopper and pick you up, or they would come by truck. Well, I was going to the headquarters of the 1st Infantry Division, which is in Zion, just not that far away from Benoit. Yeah, it seemed like hours, but I later drove that road many times. So we're outside, and we're waiting for the truck to come pick us up. And it was a lieutenant amongst us, and so he immediately took charge of us. And so I said, Lieutenant, are you going to issue us weapons? And he goes, hell no, you'll probably shoot yourself. He says, you'll get your weapons when you get in the base camp. And I says, okay. Well, all of a sudden down the road came this dirtiest, muddiest, 2.5-ton deuce and a half. That's a big old truck. And this thing had mud on the windshield. I couldn't even see how the driver could see out of it. And it was just filthy. And he comes in, and in the back, there's a guy back there, and he's got a 50 caliber machine gun on this big round wheel. And he's got a steel pot on, and he's got his flak jacket on, and he's hanging over this 50 caliber machine gun like he was dead. Nobody told him he was dead. Well, come to find out, he was sleeping. That was his job. He would just transport troops back and forth. Well, we jump up in the back of the deuce and a half, and this lieutenant says, who knows how to fire a 50 caliber machine gun? I said, I do, sir. And I never fired one in my life, but I figured at least I'll have a weapon in case something happens. And we drove all the way to the headquarters of the 1st Infantry Division. And it was, I died 1,000 deaths. I mean, first time through the jungle roads, you think every turn you're going to die. I mean, it's just like, holy cow, this is it. I was so happy to see the headquarters of the 1st Infantry Division gates. As we pulled through the gates, I thought, wow, I escaped my first mission. Are there any questions? And I said, yes, sir, Lieutenant. I said, Private Mansour, sir, speak. I said, doesn't the 1st Infantry Division have a 1st MID attached to the G2? He says, what'd you say? I said, doesn't the 1st Infantry Division have a 1st MID that's attached to the G2? He goes, come up here. So I walk up there. He goes, looking down at me, he goes, what the blankety blank is your MOS? And I said, 97 Bravo 40, sir. He goes, your intelligence. And I says, yes, sir. He says, you shouldn't be here. I said, well, where'd you come from? I said, well, from the tent. I was peeling potatoes. He said, oh, I'm sorry. He said, get out of here. I said, wait a minute, Lieutenant, where am I supposed to go now? He says, go in my tent. So I go in his tent. And by the way, of all the tents I've been in so far in Vietnam, that was the nicest. I mean, rank does have its privilege. Anyways, he comes in, he throws that beautiful steel pot on the ground and says, damn it, Mansour, you shouldn't have heard that talk. I said, what do you mean, Lieutenant? I was really impressed. I thought you did a heck of a job. No, you're not infantry. You're intelligence. And I go, yes, I am. He says, well, I called and someone's picking you up for your unit. Get out of here. I said, okay. So with that, Chuck Scribner pulls up in a Jeep. To this day, Chuck and I have kept in contact. He said, Mansour, we've been looking for you. Where you been? I said, you don't want to know. He says, okay. So he took me back to our, we had 2 little tents. They were all set up. One we slept in, and the other was our operation tent. And I walked in, and I met Captain Rose. He was my commanding officer. He was a little guy from Alabama. He looked up at me. He goes, man, you're a big guy, aren't you? And I go, yes, sir, I am. He said, well, the first thing you got to do is take those silly corporal or private stripes off here. And he rips my stripes off the side of my uniform. And he says, you're old enough to be a first lieutenant. So he pins me with first lieutenant honors. I'm going, I'm liking this already. I said, now do I get paid as a lieutenant? Hell no, you're still an enlisted man. Well, okay. Specious way by just close your eyes. And if you can just envision, it's dawn, start of the day in Vietnam. And all of a sudden you hear the Chinook helicopter in the background, hovering over a rice paddy. And dangling underneath the Chinook helicopter was a rope. And attached to the rope was this makeshift harness. And in this harness was a water buffalo. Okay, you got the picture? Well, we went in,